Hello! Welcome to the second 6 weeks curriculum preview for Algebra 1. This is Brenda Mesa, and I hope you will find the information in this preview to be helpful. In the second 6 weeks, we'll be covering 2 units, Unit 3, Linear Functions, and Unit 4, Systems of Linear Equations and Inequalities. Please consult your district scope and sequence for the recommended number of days for each unit. Let's start by taking a look at the organization of our TEKS. Our TEKS consists of strands, knowledge and skill statements, and student expectations. The strand, in this particular case, is linear functions, equations, and inequalities. The knowledge and skill statement is the student applies the mathematical process standards when using properties of linear functions to write and represent in multiple ways, with and without technology, linear equations, inequalities, and systems of equations. And then we have our student expectations. The student expectations are indicated by the letters. The instructional tasks that you design in all of our units should incorporate the mathematical process standards. STAR testing data indicates that process standards A.AB, A.1b, and A.1f are the most often tested process standards. A.1b is the use of a problem-solving model. And that's one of our Tier 1 priorities. The problem-solving model that we use in our district is UPS Check. So anytime that we are having our students utilize UPS Check on the work that they do, we are supporting the implementation of process standard A.1b. A.1a, apply mathematics to problems arising in everyday life, society, and the workplace. When you embed the mathematics into the context of a situation that deals with the student's everyday life, the student's society, or the workplace, we are incorporating A.1a. A.1f, analyze mathematical relationships to connect and communicate mathematical ideas. When you are having the students analyze mathematical relationships and connect those relationships, and then communicate their mathematical ideas, communicate either in written form or verbally, you are incorporating process standard A.1f. It's important to note that the curriculum writing team made the decision to include A.2h in Unit 4, write linear inequalities in 2 variables given a table of values, a graph, and a verbal description. Please note that this unit does not include systems of equations. Systems of equations will be covered in Unit 4. Okay, so we have a few more standards. You can pause the video if you need more time to read those standards. Additional standards. Okay, notice that when we start with A.12, we have changed strands. We're now working in the number and algebraic methods strand. And in this case, the knowledge and skill statement still starts out, the student applies the mathematical process standards and algebraic methods to write, solve, analyze, and evaluate equations, relations, and functions. And then we have 2 supporting standards there. When we're looking at A.12e, solve mathematical and scientific formulas and other literal equations for a specified variable, it might be helpful to go visit with your science teachers. They have lots of formulas that they use. They use some in biology, but they use more in chemistry and physics. So you might go and visit with them and maybe get their reference materials and use some of those equations in your classroom. That way we're doing some integration of math and science there. As you can see by the number of standards in this unit, it is a very long unit with lots of important content. You have flexibility to break the unit into smaller subunits and to test over smaller chunks of information. Additional information on our standards can be found on the standard clarifying documents or on the unit overview. I would encourage you to take a look at these as there's lots of valuable information contained on them. Okay, so now I want us to go and take a look at some of the released items. As we look at the released items in this presentation, I would ask that you look at them through 2 lenses. 1, where do you think your students struggled? And 2, are there any instructional changes that you will make this year so your students will be successful on complex items like these in the future? I would encourage you to look at your campus data and your teacher data as we look at these items. to help inform your instruction for the upcoming year. All right, so let's start out with item 46 attached to A.2b, and 54% of our students answered this one correctly. It's coded with processes 1B, 1C, and 1F, with the correct answer being H. So in this case, they had to take the slope and take the point and then write it in standard form. A.2c is a supporting standard, is a readiness standard, and it has 2 items that were tested this past year. Question number 5, coded with A.1b, 1d, 1f, with the correct answer being A, and 74% of our students were able to answer that correctly. So that's a pretty good job. Our students did a pretty good job with that one. Question 35, coded with process standards 1A, 1B, 1D, and 1F, with the correct answer D. 49% of our students were able to answer this one correctly. Looking at the 8th grade data, our students are going to be coming to us this year a little stronger in being able to translate from the verbal to the algebraic. So hopefully you're going to be able to build on what the 8th grade teachers have done with their students, and they'll be a little more successful on items like this in the future. A.2d was question 42, and it's a griddable. So we had 60% of our students who were correctly able to solve this direct proportion problem, direct variation problem, and then be able to grid the correct answer. So that's a good job. Our kids did a good job with that, because that's tough for our kids not only to solve, but then to be sure that they grid correctly. This item was coded with processes 1A, 1B, and 1F. Okay, in 2016, the TEKS A2E, A2F, and A2G were not tested on the state test. However, they are eligible for testing, so please don't get the idea that they won't be tested this year, because they are eligible for testing. Some sample items for these TEKS can be found under standard clarification documents. A.3a was a question that our students didn't do so well on. 54% of them were able to find the slope of that line, and it has some challenge to it in that the numbers are a little larger. We have 54% of them choosing the correct answer A, and this item is coded with processes 1B, 1C, and 1F. And I would encourage you to have those reference charts available for your students, and to have them actually using them and pointing to that formula on the reference chart, so that they get accustomed to finding it, knowing that it's there, and on test day they're actually using it. A.3b, a readiness standard, and we know that because we have multiple items. Number 1, coded with processes 1A, 1B, 1C, 1E, and 1F. The correct answer is A, and 90% of our students answered it correctly, so great job. And in this case, I want to point out the test design. The state started their test with, I should say, the state testing company started all of the assessments with an item the students could be successful on, or most students could be successful on. And that's something that we should think about as we design our own assessments. Okay, question number 19, coded with processes 1B, 1C, 1E, and 1F, and 65% of our students were able to find the rate of change from the table. And again, the challenge becomes that we're dealing with some decimal numbers there, and the x's are not changing by increments of 1. So I would encourage your students, again, to be using that reference chart, and to, if they need to, pick out 2 of those points and label them x of point 1, y of point 1, x of point 2, y of point 2, to help them to be able to see how to substitute where those numbers go into the formula. And then they have a calculator that should be able to do the mathematics for them. So, okay, and then looking at, I want to talk about the discrepancies in the percentages there. Question number 1, 90% of our students were able to find essentially the rate of change. It is the rate of change from a graph they've given them those nice pretty points on there, and so all they had to do is their rise over the run. They did a great job with that. And then notice question 19, where we have 65% of our students answering it correctly. Look at the difference in those two items. They're both slope questions, they're both rate of change questions, but look at the rigor that is brought in with question number 19. And think about the materials that you're having students use. Are you exposing them to items of that rigor? Okay, 8.3c, again, a readiness standard because we have multiple items there. Question 14 is coded with 1B, 1E, and 1F, with the correct answer being 5.5. And again, that's a griddable, and 73% of our students answered that correctly, which was really good, given the fact that that it's asking for a y-intercept, and the y-intercept's not a whole number. And so the fact that our students were able to successfully find 5.5 and grid that, that's a good thing. Question 23, coded with processes 1B, 1D, and 1F, with the answer choice being B. And so for this question, there's multiple ways that you could be teaching this in your classroom. Most of us are probably teaching them to put it in slope-intercept form and graph it. So for those kiddos, what are we going to do for those kiddos? We get close to test time, and we know some kids still can't put something in slope-intercept form. So one thing you might try having the kids do is find their x and y intercepts, where they substitute 0 in for x to find y-intercept, 0 in for y to find the x-intercept, and then find those intercepts on the graph. Or they could pick a point on the line and substitute those points in for x and y and see which makes a true statement, and that would be their solution. So my wondering is, are we designing instruction that allows students to have multiple strategies for solving problems like this? Okay, in 3E, question 11, it's coded with processes 1B and 1G, with the correct answer being B. 64% of our students solved this item correctly and chose answer choice B, but 24% of our students, almost a fourth of our students, chose C. So therein we have an issue with being able to read. They understood that the y-intercept was going to be translated up, but then we have to figure out, can they read and determine, and are they using that graphing calculator to help them to determine, is it less steep or not as steep, more steep or less steep. So again, the calculator could be a tool that could help our students in this particular case. Okay, again, we have two TEKS, 8.4a, 8.4b, that were not tested in 2016. You may find sample assessment items on our standard clarification documents. Excuse me, 8.4c, coded with processes 1a, 1b, 1c, 1e, and 1f, with the correct answer choice being H. 56% of our students were able to answer this one correctly. A little concerning, we had 28% of them choose answer choice G. So we need to spend a little time with our kiddos on being able to find that line of best fit by hand, because if they chose G there, they looked at 85 and they used that first point at 180, 90, just above the 90 there. They use that as their first data point, where that one's not necessarily clustered around the line of best fit. So working with the kiddos and having them make those sketches. Remember, our knowledge and skills statement said students should do these things with and without technology. So it's great to teach them how to find the line of best fit using a calculator in the regression, but we also need excuse me, we also need to reinforce that skill of being able to find that line of best fit using by hand. Okay, 8.12b is number 27 there, coded with processes 1b and 1f, with the correct answer being 54, and 52% of our students were able to answer that correctly. Not only are they dealing with a negative, but they're also having to distribute, and then they have f of x equals 6 times the quantity 1 minus x. So we have a negative 8, and then dealing with that negative, subtracting an x there that may have added to some of the issues that our students might have had with the questions. Okay, 12E, coded with processes 1B and 1F. The correct answer is J. Again, this is a linear equation, and so the state would have expected them to be able to transform this from standard form into slope-intercept form. And 63% of our students were able to do that. They chose J. It's a little more complex because you do get some fractions. The y-intercept becomes a fraction there. 17% of our students chose H, and 16% of our students chose G. So over a quarter of our students are still not able to transform in the slope-intercept form, which is one of those foundational skills. So keep working on it with our kiddos. I know it's having taught Algebra 1 for many, many years, I know it's a struggle, and some kids, you just got to keep at it, keep trying to reinforce it with them. Okay, in this particular unit, we have a student task that our awesome district curriculum writing team put together for you. To access the student task, you will go to Unit 3, click on Resources, Unit Documents, Resources, got those backwards there, and then at the bottom of the page, you'll see it open up, you'll see Resources, and then you'll see one that's for 8.12E's, Student Task Literal Equations, and then we have one that's a quizzes. So when you click on one of those, it'll open up in the white space and it'll say, please click on the link to access the student task, or you might have to copy that and paste it into your browser. But you will need to, excuse me, you'll need to access these tasks through your Google account, your Birdville Schools Google account. So you'll need to log in with your g.birdvilleschools.net account to be able to access the student tasks. And I think you'll find some good work there, some things that you want to consider using with your students. Excuse me. Next thing I want you to do is we're going to take a look at the supporting information document. So in just a moment, I'm going to ask you to go to www.texasgateway.org, and in the lower right-hand corner, you will click on the Mathematics TEKS supporting information, and it'll open up a screen like this. You'll select Algebra 1, and you'll select that green document. And you can open that up and scroll through that document. You can download it to your desktop. If you download it, you'll want to check back periodically, perhaps as we do the next curriculum preview, to make sure you have the most up-to-date version. TEA has told us that they will update this document, but they're not going to send out a mass email when they do. So it's up to us to keep track of those dates and make sure that we have the most up-to-date information. If you have previously printed out this document or you previously downloaded this document, check to see that the date on your document is the same as the date of the document online, and the date can be found in the footer. If you have an older version of the document, please discard it and use the newer version. So at this time, I want you to go ahead and pause the video and go through the document and see what the state has to say about our TEKS. A.2b, 2c, 2d, 2e, 2f, 2g, 3a, 3b, 3c, 3e, 4a, 4b, 4c, 12b, and 4e. When you're ready, you can press play to resume the video. Okay, Unit 4, Systems of Linear Equations and Inequalities. We are still working on the linear equations, linear functions, equations, and inequality strand. There's some more of our standards. Not quite as long as the last unit. And again, you have some additional resources. If you need additional information on our standards, you can consult the standard clarifying documents, and you consult the unit overview. There's some great ideas on there, some information on vocabulary. So if you haven't checked those out, you want to go ahead and do so and see the wealth of knowledge that is provided for you there. All right, let's take a look at some released items for this unit. Question 3, linked with supporting standard 2H. coded with process standards 1A, 1B, 1D, and 1F, and the correct answer being B. 60% of our students answered this one correctly, and it's a translation. What tripped our students up a little bit was the symbol. 8.2i, question 13, coded with 1A, 1B, 1D, and with F. Correct answer, choice A. 48% answered this item correctly. 30% chose answer choice B. Our students struggled when they were asked to find one quantity in terms of another. And this was a challenging question for our students because they had to understand that it's 12 issues per year for the sports magazine, and then 10 issues per year for the technology magazine. And then it talks about the total number of pages and all the issues for 1 year. So setting that up of the 12S and the 10T, some of our students missed that. Setting that up to be the 12S and the 10T equal to the total number of pages. Some of our students struggled with that. But then some of our students also struggled with writing the top equation. Where is it? It says, right, the system of equation that can be used to find S, the number of pages in each issue of the sports magazine, and T, the number of pages. So working with our kiddos on solving one in terms of another will be important for us to do this year. Our kids did really great on the coin question on number 48 there, with 72% of them answering it correctly. So way to go. So what we know is our students are able to set up a straightforward question like 48, but then looking at 13, when they're asked to solve for a variable in terms of another variable, we struggle with that. So continue to work with your kiddos on reading the problem and writing questions, writing equations of one variable in terms of another. Okay, then we have 3D, again a readiness standard because we have 2 items there. Question number 7, coded with 1B, 1E, and 1F, with the correct answer being C. And 70% of our students were able to answer that correctly. So they really did a good job with that. And question 47, though, only 54% of our students were able to answer that correctly. And in that case, the students are even given the equation in y equals form. Y is greater than or equal to negative 7/2 x minus 2. And so I'm not sure why they didn't do so well on that, other than maybe they got confused with the shading greater than and less than. My wondering would be, are we helping our kids to know how to shade using the calculator? And I'm going to provide a video for that later in the overview in this module. So if anybody needs a refresher or you don't know what I'm talking about, you can get some tips there. Okay, 3F, number 32, coded with processes 1B, 1D, and 1F. The correct answer choice is F, and 62% of our students answered it correctly. So they did a pretty good job with this one. All right, we have 2 standards that were not tested, 3G and 3H. So you may find sample items on our standard clarification documents. 8.5c, question 20, was coded with process standards 1A, 1B, and 1F, with the correct answer being 13, and 46% of our students answered this one correctly. Okay, so this is a difficult problem. Not only did they have to set up a system of equations, but then they had to solve it, and then they had to grid it. So it was rigorous from many standpoints. We do know from question 18 that our students, not 18, from the coin problem, I don't remember what number that was, from the coin problem that our students can write a basic system of equations. And so then we have to take it to that next level of how do they solve it? Are you teaching them to solve these all graphically? What are you teaching them to do with this? Are you teaching them to do it logically, creating a table? and if they purchase 21 coffee mugs and keychains, and coming up with how many coffee mugs and keychains, and then doing the mathematics that way, or are you teaching them to graph it? We know there are multiple ways, so just be sure that you're including problems that they have to solve and then they have to grid with your kiddos. Question number 39 is coded with processes 1B and 1F, with the correct answer choice being A, and 60% of our students were able to solve this one. So we get some idea that if they're given a system of equations, they can actually solve it. And in this case, not quite as rigorous as question 20, because one of the equations is already in terms of y, and the second equation, if you taught them to substitute, it's already solved for a variable, or the top equation there, that's a fairly easy equation to solve for y, and then they could put it in their calculator and solve. All right, we do have a student task in this particular unit, and you can find those. We have 2 student tasks. Again, you go into the unit, you go into unit documents, you go into resources, and then click on down at the bottom where it says student task. Click on the one that you want to look at, and it'll open up in the white space. You can either click on that link or copy it into your web browser and then log into your g.birdvilleschools.net account, and you can see the student task. And again, your curriculum writing teams have done a great job with creating some tasks that you can use in your classroom. Once again, I want us to go out to the Gateway and take a look at what TEA has to say about our standards. So you go to www.texasgateway.org. In the lower right-hand corner, click on the Mathematics TEAC supporting information. It'll open to a screen like this. Click on Algebra 1, click on the green document, and you can scroll through. And so I would like for you to take a few moments to take a look and see what the latest information is from TEA on our standards in this unit. And those standards are 2H, 2I, 3D, 3F, 3G, 3H, and 5C. Well, it looks like we've come to the end of our time together. Thank you for taking time to participate in this video. I hope you find the information was helpful. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions or if there's anything I can do for you. For now, this is Brenda.